They're responsible for everything. Just like Satan is responsible for evil on earth, these things are responsible for evil in our system. And you know what's interesting, Natalia, about these goofy things? You know, we think of Satan as horned entity. I documented and photographed that coming out of my lungs.
Wow.
They're like little mini satanic creatures in my body. And they will change your way of thinking to get what they want. That's how powerful they are. That is called master manipulation. And you don't even know they're there manipulating you.
Yes. Welcome back to another episode of the Quantum Body Podcast, where we share activations around quantum, cellular, and regenerative health in order for you to upgrade your body to be able to expand into higher states of consciousness. I'm actually really excited for this episode because I have here my dear friend Diane Rossow. Thank you for being here.
Well, delighted to be here with you. Absolutely delighted.
Yeah, I'm really excited for you all to actually get to hear her because she has literally an ocean of wisdom and knowledge that it's gonna be a really exciting conversation actually. And Diane, I absolutely loved how we met. I felt that the way that we met was literally like I felt divinely guided because there were so many synchronicities, like your name were just popping up from different angles, different ways, and then my husband connected with you, and I was like, wait a second, I was contacting you so we didn't know. And then I was just so happy to learn and meet someone that is as fascinated about the parasitic world as much as I am, because I don't know anybody that is like that. And yeah, and I remember when we first connected, like I really admired the way that you show up in such a service. Like I could really feel your passion to bring awareness and to support people have that knowledge about what's really going on for their bodies. So yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for your kind words. And if I remember, I too recognized in you this curiosity and fascination of parasites. And it is kind of a lonely world because as fascinating as it is to us, it's foreign and yucky and scary to many people. But it's a mission of mine to share it with the world because it really impedes a lot of people's ability to live their fullest life.
Wow. Yes, that is so true. It does feel quite alien, actually. Like even like we're gonna go into it, but the way that they look, it's quite alien. Like, the way the parasites look. But yeah, I mean, I know that also like this is part of your mission, right? Like to bring awareness for people on how they can take care of what you call like this internal hygiene by eliminating and detoxing those pathogens. But I'm sure that I know that you had the story, where you had maybe an aha moment or something that happened that just got you to have a drastic change for yourself and your family. So I'm curious if you want to start there, if you want to share a little bit more about that journey of yours.
I'd be happy to. Very near and dear to my heart. 3 years ago, my daughter, my only blood daughter, was on 26 medications a day. And that was under doctor's orders. And I was very angry about that because 16 of those were opioids. And I knew the toxicity of the opioids, but I didn't really understand the toxicity of the antidepressants and the nerve medication and the migraine medication and all the rest of it, and all I knew is the outcome was she was non-functional and didn't want to be here anymore. So I was praying about that, and the Lord had someone call me that day about a cellular health product that starts cell signaling again. And I was kind of confused that one product could create such a fabulous outcome in so many different parts of the body. So I was very skeptic, and I passed. And the very next day, I was praying again about my daughter, and the Lord said, I told you yesterday. So with that word, I was like, oh, hello. Okay. I called this woman back and I said, I need to try your product, but I need you to know I'm going to prove you wrong. A little bit arrogant, wouldn't you say, for me to just pop up with that? And she chuckled and said, no problem. So I started on the product, and cells, I did not know this at the time, are the foundation of every organ and every system in our body. And when you start cell signaling again, that gets damaged with just age alone, add stress, trauma, and disease to that, and you have very damaged cells, then you're not going to function on all cylinders. Well, when I started taking the product, I had my arthritis in my fingers go away. My fake hips weren't causing me pain anymore. I was so excited about what was going on with me. And I wasn't a medication person, 68 years old, no medications. But yet I was just feeling amazing. I called my daughter. She agreed to go on it with me. And all kinds of things started happening with her because she was at the end of her rope. She was done. And just in a few short weeks, she started feeling more energetic, less desire to smoke, less desire to drink, because that was boredom and frustration. And then about a year and a half, God bless her for staying on this journey with me. But I was telling everybody that would listen that 90% of disease is inflammation. And Natalia, that's still true. 90% of disease is inflammation. But I woke up in the middle of the night and said, but wait, what causes the inflammation? And the Lord said, parasites and heavy metals. And I said, what does that even mean? I had no clue. And so I jumped up in the middle of the night and started researching parasites. And that's how I got to where I am today, because not only was that divine guidance number 2 on subject matter, and having never wanted to be a scientist when I dissected a snake once when I was in grade school, but I never thought I'd be dissecting worms coming out of my own body. And it's been a fascinating journey, because in understanding the different types of parasites that we have, and then really understanding why we aren't told about these, it's been a shocker of all shocks. And I am so grateful that I have been blessed to have this information, to continue to research and learn more, and then to be able to share it, because people don't have to be sick. They don't have to die from cancer. They don't have to die from other debilitating diseases or experience these long-term deaths or long-term illnesses, let's call it that lead to death, that they know they're going to die. So how many people can, hold up a happy attitude when every day could be your last one? Because detoxing the garbage from their system will get them back to the way God intended for us to be, which is wholesome and healthy from the inside.
Oh, amen. Yes, everything you shared is just so beautiful. And I want to, I really appreciate your curiosity, because I feel that is what led you in some way to go down that path, your curiosity, of asking the questions. And I feel that is what our society is lacking. For people, ask the questions, dig deeper. And I know that you said you're not a scientist, but I feel like even being going down that road opens you up to that knowledge, even more than just learning a few books or, going by the books about something, but really opening up to that knowledge because there's passion behind it. And I
Mhm.
also love the fact that everything was divinely led for you as well. It was literally a prayer answer that was given to you. Now, did you feel that, like, were you able to identify that the root of your issue and maybe your daughter's issue was linked to parasites? Is that what happened?
Yes, totally. We have, oftentimes mothers pass on their parasites in the womb, and that's something that we're not told as well. But hers and my parasites were quite different. For me, as a child, I had asthma and allergies. So I had a parasite called Ascaris, Ascaris. And hers, from a very young age, my girl was an addict. Um, Started with marijuana and alcohol. And that at age 11, she was playing with those things. And it was just very early on, 15 was maybe when she was in her first rehab. And that is an intracellular parasite, probably the Toxoplasma gondii one for her. So most of hers were in her brain and her gut, where mine resided in my lungs and my bronchial tubes. So, tying these as I was, uncovering all these different parasites and then understanding how they match to certain disease names has been fascinating too, because you detox very differently from each of these different types of parasites. At age 5 or 6, my girl started having very serious migraine headaches. So she was plagued with those parasites at that young of an age. And migraine headaches are just those intracellular means you can't see them with the human eye, and they multiply inside, so they take over. You're not supposed to have extra activity in the brain. There's already plenty of activity that God gave us. That's our wiring and our circuitry. Mm-hmm. But parasites interrupt that circuitry. And that's what causes that, and a shrinkage of the myelin lining around the brain is what causes those migraine headaches. So the parasites are responsible for the symptoms that big pharma treats.
Wow. Yeah.
So they treat the symptoms with all these different medications, but they're not getting to the root cause, which is getting rid of the parasite that causes the symptom that they're treating. And when the symptoms they're treating, the drug they treat it with also leaves behind heavy metals and other toxic waste material that doesn't belong in your body, and just makes it worse. Yeah. So, I mean, the horrible news for Brandy was that at 26 meds a day, she was not only not getting to the root cause of anything with her while under doctor's supervision, but she was literally getting worse because of the toxicity of the medications themselves. And so that's the other thing that I've done, Natalia, in the last couple of years, is I've gone down what is in this particular medication, right? And then understand the different names that are unpronounceable, however you say that word. You cannot phonetically say them. So looking them up, looking every single one of them up, and understanding what is in the medications.
Yeah, that's heartbreaking, because that's why it quite fascinates me that the fact that nobody is talking about this, like, and that's why I feel awareness is so important, right? It's like that is also the intention of this podcast, is to really bring awareness, because sometimes we think like awareness is limited, like we're aware in that area, but I feel awareness has to ripple out in all areas of our life, including what we have in our own body, what other people take. And I give kind of, this analogy, like if now you were in, like I am a host of, the house, and you come to me as a guest, and, I offer you food. If I know that what I'm putting in that food is going to cause you some sort of, illness. Maybe, I mean, if it was something imminent, like you would see it, like if I give you something and in the moment you get a reaction, you're gonna be like, why did you put inside that food? But I'm gonna be a bit more tricky about it. So I'm gonna put one that will cause you disease in a slower way so that you don't notice it. But wouldn't you would question, like, wait a second, like you're a host, why would you do that to me? And I feel that's what's happening with parasites. And why do you feel like no one is talking about it, although we know that it's not meant to be in our body? They're foreign entities.
In fact, they are foreign entities. First of all, let's talk about the host part.
Yeah.
A parasite lives on a host, must have a host to survive. And that's us. So, we spend a lot of time talking about, do we want to be buried at death or do we want to be cremated? And a lot of people don't want to be buried because they can't stand the thought of worms eating them when they're dead. Well, the worms are eating you while you're alive.
Yeah.
So, you're not going to know it when you're dead, but because of a laundry list of symptoms that we'll go over, you will be able to recognize that they are eating you while you're alive. The reason we don't talk about them is because whether it's the medical arena, pharmaceutical, politics, follow the money. Where does the money go? And that's why people don't talk about it. For decades and decades and decades, where do doctors and big pharma make their money? They don't make their money from people being well. They make their money from people that are chronically ill. And
Yeah.
one of the things that we've done as a human species is we've let them. We have handed that authority of our body over to a man in white coats or a woman in a white coat because they call themselves a doctor, DR. Well, my initials are DR, and I'm not a doctor, but I'm here to tell you that many of them do not work in your best interest.
That's true. There's like we say, like the evil penetrates anything. It can infiltrate anything, and it did infiltrate that world.
Yes.
And that's why I feel right now we're in this world, this time of reclaiming that sovereignty, right? As much as we see that there's, a lot of darkness and ignorance and, a lot of mess and chaos out there, I feel it was also an eye opener for many as well to question and to see what is going on there. But I would love to go a little bit into, because you mentioned that, I was like, okay, that's important. Also to bring that awareness about parasites living outside, like in the cells, because, like growing up, for example, I feel like maybe most people know that, but it's like parasites, like, oh, just take a dewormer. So we think, growing up, my mom would give me like a dewormer every year. That's good. Maybe she did that, or you deworm your pets. But we think that that's it. We think like maybe it's just something that you ate or a bug and you just, take, like you just think they're living in the intestines. And I think that also so many protocols out there or maybe cleanses are just focusing on that. And what we're opening up to, which I love about your work, is that like opening up to actually, wait a second, parasites are not just there. They can live throughout the body and maybe in the cells. So can we talk a little bit more about that?
Sure. It really is fascinating when you start understanding that there are about, give or take, 6,000 different parasites. And they fall into three major categories. The first category being helminths, Helminth, helminths, or worms, different types of worms, tapeworms, pinworms, hookworms, all different kinds of worms fall in that category. Those are the ones you can see. When they will come out of your stool, they'll come out of your phlegm. You can see those. The intracellular parasites are ones you cannot see. They're called the protozoans. They're the ones that you'd have to have a microscope. There is a fascinating movie on Netflix called Brain on Fire, and it does an amazing job of helping people understand how intracellular parasites in the brain just take over your thought process, your ability to react and to make decisions. And they take it over. Those are much harder because very few doctors will believe you, let alone do a brain biopsy to find out what you're dealing with. And the third one is called ectoparasites, and those would be your external, your ticks, your lice, fleas, mosquitoes. Those are ectoparasites that don't live and recreate inside your body, but they leave their venom. They bite you and leave their venom inside of you, and that creates the havoc. So, the most famous ectoparasite is the tick that is the cause for Lyme disease. Okay. So a lot of people, when they get bit, get this thing off of me, get it off of me, but they don't realize the longer term ramifications that can have on their health. They just start feeling poorly and forget that they were bitten by a tick. So those three major categories are all dealt with differently. And the hard part about it is, even if you take the worms, they're called parasites for a reason. They're incredibly difficult to get rid of. They are very resourceful. When they get disturbed, they're very, the older ones are very wise and quickly try to maneuver and find a different place to hide. Or to bury into. And when I say bury into, many of these things have horns, and they literally put holes in your organs so they can crawl in and hide. So understanding that these different ones react differently to different protocols, I'm really learning that, one protocol does not suit all. It has a lot of variance. And so if you're looking for someone to give you a protocol that will cure you, you kind of need to expand your thinking, because even you don't know what's inside of you. No doctor can tell you what's inside. I can't tell you what's inside of you until it starts coming out of you. And I see what happens when it starts coming out of you. And then we have to switch up the protocols, because switching them up may get to some older guys that have been in there for a long time that are immune to some of the other things that you've tried. So it's really a bit more of a complex issue that I feel like I've just really started scratching the surface on.
Wow. Yeah. Thanks for sharing all that. And they're really, like, when you're describing them, like, they're really resilient, and and they're like, it's kind of this instinct of survival. They have such a powerful instinct of survival, I feel. But so many different questions popped up here in when you were sharing. And I think we're going to go a little bit more later on what your protocol is to, support the body with these things. But I feel that that's what's fascinating, because you said it, because a lot of people think, but I went and I got checked, through a stool test or something like that, or sometimes you have blood test, and like, there's nothing, like, I couldn't see that there was any parasite. And I found that also very strange. Now, and we're going to go a little bit more into it, but from an energetic point of view, for me doing energy work, I know that they hide. because they don't want to be seen. And that was also my personal experience. I felt for so long, that was before I knew about parasites, but I felt there was something off in me, energetically, emotionally. I didn't know that they existed. And then they revealed themselves through the energy first. But I realized that they don't want to be seen, because if they're seen, you're gonna tackle them, you're gonna do something about it. So they're hiding. They have this mechanism to hide. That's
Evil
fascinating.
lurks in darkness, right? And you can
Yeah.
apply that to so many different things. Evil lurks in darkness. Parasites in the body are no different. Some of their favorite hiding places, the uterus,
Wow.
causes, because it's self-contained. They weave their little webs, and then a woman can't menstruate, and she ends up with what they call endometriosis or PCOS. And what it is the parasites have just closed up the opening for her to be able to release that lining every month. They hang out in the liver. They bury their little heads in the liver. They're called liver flukes, actually. And those things, people that cannot lose weight probably are infested with liver flukes.
Oh,
You've known people that eat nothing but salad and fruit, and all they do is gain weight. That is one of the raging signs of liver flukes. They eat everything that you put in your body. They hang on to everything, no matter what it is. There's this, you have an adult parasite and you have eggs, larvae, but you also have something called biofilm. And biofilm is what protects them from the bile and the different digestive enzymes that our body produces to break down our food. It protects them from that. So me having most of my parasites in the form of worms in my lungs, because I was compromised as a child with asthma and allergies, and that's a lung parasite. That biofilm was harder to get up than the actual worms themselves, because it's very sticky and it's very spiderwebby, and it really protects them. So, when people say, well, I had a colonoscopy and my intestines are clear. Well, of course they're clear. Look what they make you drink before you get the colonoscopy. You drink, 2 gallons of some nasty concoction that clears you out. So they don't see anything when they go do a colonoscopy. In your stool, they don't come out in every stool. So even if you have a stool with parasites in it, you may not be sending in the section with the parasites, because you don't know what to look for. You don't know what to look for. You just think it's gross poop. Well, no, it's fascinating poop if you took a wooden skewer and pulled it apart and saw what was in there. But there are some blood tests that can help you understand if you have parasites, but doctors don't give them because they don't believe in them. They don't believe that. Well, I had a surgeon tell me recently, parasites are not a thing in the United States. Like, oh, sir, you couldn't be further from wrong. Ask any pathologist, that they open up dead bodies. They'll tell you all day long people are infested with parasites.
wow.
All day long. 97% of people that die are full of parasites.
Yeah. And I feel that is why it's so controversial in a way to like talk about it. I know for myself, like when I tell people, it feels like really sometimes it's like this hesitation, like I want to even open the conversation with that person, because when I say it, like the reaction of like, are you crazy? And
Yeah.
saying, all of us have parasite. Nah, are you crazy? Or like they say something, oh yeah, because you have parasite. And even for myself in the energy work, when I say, hey, there's like a parasitic entity or something like that, like immediately, as if we're so programmed in our culture to, no way, it cannot be. it's not possible for me to have those things. But actually, guys, let's say, yes, this is a reality. And the more that we deny it, the more we're not looking into the problem to actually take sovereignty over ourselves and do something about it. It's like we're kind of giving ourselves and saying, you know what? Yeah, I don't want to live anymore. As if we're saying yes to whatever is in my body. Like, do we want something foreign in our body? We don't. But
Right.
we don't see it this way because, like, they're so tiny and we're like, yeah, but our body is okay with it. Or, sometimes I hear people say, but my body will adapt, or through my mind, or through the, power of prayer, or whatever it is. And I'm like, I mean, I'm not judging because I was there. I was there when I started my path. My spiritual path, I was like, yeah, everything is energy, everything is prayer. What is meant to be is what should happen. And then my stepson was right there in my face, like energetically, or like whatever, slapping me in my face was a slap, but it was like a slap in the face. Like, I am struggling, I am in pain because he's on the spectrum. And we did, prayer, intention, just giving love, healing the trauma, doing the energy work. It didn't take away that because his body is damaged.
Mhm.
And that's when it just opened me up. And the very first layer we did was the diet, and it helped him. But then the massive other one was parasite cleanse. When we did the parasite cleanse, it was like he was 60% better. I'm like, wow. So there is something to it. And I feel it's important for people listening to this. It's like, yes, maybe it's too much what we're saying. It's going into the details of things. Sometimes we don't want to face the dark because it's uncomfortable. But I feel it's important we do so that we bring the light for it.
Mm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And just like so many people with children on the spectrum, they feel like there's no hope because they're not getting it from the Western medicine. They're not
Yeah.
getting that hope. They may get told to go see a nutritionist, and that's a great first step because parasites love certain things. Sugar. Sugar is absolutely in every packaged food, every soft drink, every condiment. I mean, sugar is food. Every alcoholic beverage just about has sugar. And so you're feeding them without even realizing that you're adding to your own detriment with just that one food alone.
Yeah.
So understanding, first of all, absorbing that they're real and that, yes, you have them.
Yeah.
We think nothing of deworming our animals, our horses. We are mammals too. Why weren't we taught this? So if you think about just the one we talked about, Lyme disease, there are multiple names, all with a little twist on them for Lyme disease. Epstein-Barr, even fibromyalgia has a kind of a twist of Lyme disease in it. It's complete fatigue. It's pain and aching in every joint. It's difficulty with brain fog and lack of clarity. It's a bug. It's a bug that you can get rid of. And so, believe it. If you're most kids are born with parasites, but if you're 10 years old or above and you've never been dewormed, first time I started deworming, it was at 66. Oh my gosh, don't wait that long. It takes too long. It's too hard. It's hard on your body to get these out. It's exhausting. And you think you're going to just power through it and it's going to be a shake here and a drink there. No, it's not hard to do. And it's not, it doesn't take hours of your day, but it will cause you to slow down a bit. It will cause fatigue. It will maybe enhance your headaches for a while or cause you to have diarrhea. And the older you are, I guarantee you, the more you have.
Thank you for that. That was powerful. And I think that's why it's leading me to the point of like why it's important to do cleanses, and even whether it's because that's what's coming to me, right? The terrain theory. And I feel that's the other reprogramming we have, because when we think of health, it's like just wait till you get sick till it's somehow late. Because then when you're sick, it's an emergency. And that's why we sometimes say like there is some sort of benefit to, Western medicine, that sense where there's an emergency. You got to go and, you broke your arm or whatever. Okay, let's go. Like that's an emergency. But if there's something we can do to take care of our body, be in wellness, be in well-being, and take care of like the terrain, instead of just looking at, oh, there's a bacterial infection or there's this pathogen, let's target it. Let's instead take care of the terrain, right? And that's what we're saying. It's kind of looking into, so you mentioned the diet. And I would love like just to hear from you here, like what could people do, first of all, if we know that we're, like they're everywhere. So what could they do to maybe be mindful of that in their, in their environment? And what could they do besides, like, we're going to get into the protocol, but maybe through nutrition or through diet to, take care of that and take care of the terrain?
There are some foods that you can eat, and I will have an ebook out hopefully within a couple of weeks, and I'll make sure that you get that on parasites, and it'll just be the basics of what they are and what foods you can eat and things like that, so that you can share it with your folks. But pineapple, parasites don't like pineapple. It has an enzyme in it called bromelain. They don't like garlic. They don't like onions. They don't like live cultures in like your yogurt and your cottage cheese. So yogurt and cottage cheese, you have to be careful to make sure that you get those with no added sugars. But only eat those if you have the ones with these billions of live cultures in them. So that's a good one. There are others, but the bottom line is you need to get rid of them first, right? You need to get rid of them first, especially if you're 50 and older, rather than worry about no sugar and things they don't like. You have too many. That's the wrong place to start. That's second to getting started on a cleanse. So yes, you want to start on a cleanse immediately. And yes, in addition to the cleanse, you want to make sure you're not eating the things that will feed them, because that defeats the purpose of trying to kill them. And then the third thing you have to really remember is that hydration is so important anyway, and we all know this. None of us drink enough water to just on it without a parasite cleanse going on. With a parasite cleanse going on, you need to drink a minimum of half your body weight in ounces of water, and lemon water is key, because lemon makes your body believe that you're bringing in food, not just hydration. So it absorbs it into the organs, so it's better able to flush out the dead parasites in the organs when you drink lemon water. Some people prefer lime water. Some rather have oranges in it. Something with citrus in it is really good. So why is that cleanse so important? It's real simple. You're not going to get better if you don't.
Straightforward answer.
I hate to be so bold. I mean, again, I don't profess to be a doctor, but just in the 2 years I've been really had my head into parasites, they're responsible for everything. They're responsible for everything. Just like Satan is responsible for evil on earth, these things are responsible for evil in our system. And you know what's interesting, Natalia, about these goofy things? We think of Satan as a serpent. We think of him as a snake. We think of him as a horned entity. Do you know that every single one of those terms I documented and photographed that coming out of my lungs?
Wow.
They're like little mini satanic creatures in my body. And once you start seeing them come out, trust me, you will not stop at the end of a 3-day cleanse. I've had many people say, oh, Diane, I don't have parasites. I went on a 3-day cleanse. Oh, how long ago was that? Oh, 6 months. Well, all you did was piss them off. That's it. You did. Sorry, I probably should have used a different term, but that's all you do in 3 to 5 days. If you do that, you've never been to worm before, and you do a 3 to 5 day cleanse, you haven't even you've I'm sure you probably didn't see anything.
Yeah, and it is true. I think we gotta talk about things like that. Like we cannot sugarcoat it. It's like we can't. And it is true that, parasites, in my perspective, they're really like I call them like the pets of the demons. Like they've used parasites to infiltrate this world. And like you said, through the womb. So this is where it enters, because then it's easily transmit it from generation to generation. And I want to dive into this topic, if you like, a little bit, just that aspect. But for myself, when I got introduced to parasites, as I mentioned, I just knew that, okay, there's deworming, but it wasn't much. And I got introduced to it when I started my path. As I mentioned, I saw them in the energy world first. And I remember, like, I was in that state and I saw them in the etheric realm. I saw this creature literally like look like a big worm and very alien. And I think it was the mother worm. Like, as I'm saying, I didn't know anything about it, but it was the intuitive sense I was getting. Okay, it's a mother worm. I was very sick. I was purging. And that's how it's just like I felt that worm inside me. And I remember fighting it, like, just get out of my body. What the hell are you doing there? Like, just get the hell out. And it was just so stubborn. It wasn't getting out. And I had to use a lot of like self-empowerment and strength to like just take it out. And that was just, energetically. And then I saw it as soon as it left, or it was leaving, it left this green substance. And back then I didn't know what it was, which I think is ammonium. I think that's what they leave, like this kind of poison afterwards. And that's when, in that moment, I realized, like, okay, this is real. And that's when I got initiated personally with opening my world to the parasite. Like, this is real in the spirit realm, in the physical realm. It's one of the same. They've infiltrated our world. Because also we can go into that, if you want to talk more about it, but how you said it, they take over the host. So I'm assuming it's like, it's vampiric in nature because it wants to take something from you. And it controls you, right? It controls your thoughts, your behaviors, your emotions. Yeah, let's talk a little bit more about that. What's your perspective on it?
Well, I'm thinking right now of addicts like my own daughter. And I do want to inject real quickly about her so I don't forget that it's been 3 years on our journey together. And she is today 100% med free,
Wow.
gainfully employed, has her brain back, is speaking in complete and full paragraphs, not just sentences. And it is the most glorious, beautiful thing to watch. But had she not stuck with the protocol, and it kept adjusting, because she and I were my first guinea pigs, as far as what to do and how to attack them and what products to use. And it was a lot of research and a lot of trial and error to get to where we are today. Could I have saved us both some time if I'd have known all this before? I think so. But I also wouldn't have learned everything that I have to date. Yeah. So she was able to stand there one night and say, Mom, I feel my brain refiring. And it was literally the electrons hooking back up. And so back to the how deadly they are and how they take over. If you take addicts, they have this, concentration of intracellular parasites in the brain. Those things hang on to the follicles of your hair. So that's kind of how they kind of operate and understand the outside world too, is through hair follicles. So through your hair and your fingernails, you can have testing done, and you can have testing done for those two things, for heavy metals and parasites, with hair and nails. And you can go to places where they do P tests for addicts. They'll do those tests for you. That's another way besides a blood test to determine not what parasites that you have, but that you have, a high concentration of metals or parasites or both.
Yeah.
So I've worked with several addicts now, not just my daughter, but several in their 60s, and they lose their hair. And my daughter lost clumps of hair as well. But one gal went completely and totally bald. And she's struggled with alcoholism since she was 11, 12 years old, and she's almost 70. So she lost her whole head of hair in getting rid of, because, you kill them, they let go, and the hair falls out. Wow. Right? Yeah. So with each, and this is back to your comment that I so appreciate. There's no sugarcoating this conversation. It's a serious conversation. But when you lose your hair, is that worse, or is losing your life worse? Hair will come back, in time. Hair will come back. But to have your life back and not have the crutch of alcohol dependency or drug dependency for the rest of your life, it's not you that's the alcoholic. It's the parasites in you that are the alcoholics. They're the ones called candida that must have the sugar, and they will change your way of thinking to get what they want. That's how powerful they are. Think about that. They will literally change your way of thinking to get what they want. That is called master manipulation. And you don't even know they're there manipulating you.
Yes.
So now when I see, people that are just really misbehaving, I just think, oh my gosh, full of parasites. Full of parasites.
That's it. And we have compassion. Like for me now, I have compassion. And everything you're talking about, I witnessed with my own eyes with my stepson. And I asked this question: why is it he has, which is common for kids on the spectrum, aggression, addiction, OCD, whatever you call it. And for him, addiction was with food. Like it was just extreme. Like you would do whatever it takes, like with aggression, with fight, just to go and get it, And all these, almost 90% went away, say not even hundreds, then 95%, the moment that we did that cleanse. So for me, that raises the question: what is then aggressive? Is that behavior natural, or can we dive a little bit deeper, instead of just accepting? Because I get it, we can accept things, but then we can wait a second, maybe there's another perspective, there's another solution where we can look into it it's not in the organic way. It's not natural. It creates chaos. I witnessed that firsthand with my stepson, but also noticed it with people that I work with. You can feel it's literally a possession, something that they even notice it themselves. Like there's something that making me have those thoughts, like an infiltration of thoughts, whether sometimes it could be sexual or weird, evil thoughts, that are not supposed to be there. And it's not themselves. Like you can feel it's not themselves. But I feel like it's important to highlight that if we know that we're in that kind of war, it's not that we're not, it's because sometimes people can freak out like, oh, does that mean I'm possessed? I feel like, okay, how about we bring to the truth that we all are on some level because we live in that world. But also we have our choice is here where we can choose to make a different decision and say, we want to connect to that, because maybe you want to speak a little bit more about this, like how you're saying that if it's controlling our thoughts, it's also, and it's demonic in nature, it's stopping us from being more in that connection with God.
Beautiful point. And Natalia, I believe God doesn't make mistakes. So he didn't intend for us to come out of the womb evil and possessed. He didn't intend for that at all. And it's been a process over centuries of the way that processed food, that pharmaceuticals, and that the way that we were taught through the education system of things that were appropriate for us to eat, the air we breathe, the toxicity in the air, the water we drink, the metals in the water that we drink, and just simply living life has created, this nonstop need for seeing a doctor that is really a person just practicing on us. Yeah. They call them practitioners. It's been very evil, but it didn't start with the children. It didn't start with the brand new baby. It started with the evil before that in poisoning everything about what we need to survive.
Yeah, that is true. And I feel that's what we're coming in here before we jump into the protocol right now. But kind of that's what we're doing here. It's like, it's the importance for people to understand you need this, like you need the cleanse. And I see that also in with my clients, like we do the energy work, which is important because you want to see why it's there, what's going on, what's the root cause that created this. But then you cannot escape the physical reality where you need to support your body with a physical cleanse as well. I feel both are very important. And just imagining that the more that you're like releasing these things, you're seeing, like, as simple as addiction is lessening. Imagine your thought process, your mind, your mental state, your emotions, you will feel lighter. Like all these things would happen that will allow you to be more of yourself and have more of that sovereignty rather than feel something else is controlling you, right?
Right.
So, yeah, so I guess now I just really want to know, since we're diving into this, like, what is it that you recommend for people, because you work on that. As I said, that's what fascinates me is your knowledge around a cellular detox. We're not just talking about taking something that will help you deworm on the intestines, but really going into the root cellular healing. So yeah, share with us, what is that protocol that you recommend?
Sure. So a lot of people that I work with that not only have their heads around it, but they've felt worms moving, or they've seen them in their eyes, or they actually are not fighting the fact they have parasites, want to jump into a parasite cleanse heavy duty right now. Well, not on my watch, because if you're that sick and you know that, then the worst thing I can do is dump a bunch of dead parasites on an already inflamed and sick body. So in order to give you the best shot at not being completely debilitated through the parasitical cleanse process, we need to start with getting the cell signaling completely amped. Because you see what happens when you're completely full, when you have a large amount of parasites in your body, they're poisoning your cells. They're causing oxidative stress at the cellular level. So you're already on a reduced capacity because of the parasites. So the first thing that we have to do is, God intended for every single cell in our body to have an energy plant. And that energy plant, called the mitochondria, produces cell signaling molecules. That cell signaling, it's like it's been turned down, like your dimmer switch on your living room light. It's like it's been turned way down because of that negative activity in your body. So we have to turn it back up. And with a product called ASEA, that's exactly what that does, is it starts the process of putting those energy molecules back in your body that God intended us to have in the first place. So when your body starts receiving cell signaling molecules as a supplement, it knows exactly what to do with it because it's already making those molecules. It's just not making enough of them. That also raises your glutathione levels by 8 times, which is your master antioxidant in the body. You desperately need those. And it starts the detoxing process. So it reduces the inflammation because it's repairing and replacing cells much more rapidly now because it has more of the capability of doing that. So it's repairing and replacing the cells, getting rid of that oxidative stress so that the inflammation in your body starts to come down. So I 2 to 3 months based on age, based on severity of symptoms. I put a lot of things, I want to understand the diet. I want to understand the meds you're on, all of that. Then I'll say no less than 3 months on the cell signaling molecules, the ASEA product, before I'll even start on the parasite cleanse. Or, you're 25 years old, you haven't been sick for very long, you've got a lot more cell signaling going on at 25 than you do 65 anyway, because you lose 10% capacity to produce those every decade you're alive. So at 25, you still have a lot more, and you're on no medications. And, that would, that person, maybe I would let them jump right into a cleanse, maybe. But 95% of my people start on, let's get the cell signaling going first. Then I started on ivermectin, the horse paste ivermectin. And I took that for over 10 months. And before I realized that ivermectin only kills the adult parasites. It's a fabulous product, but it's not killing off the eggs, the larvae, and the biofilm. But I always have a tube of ivermectin around because it can be wonderful for the exit wounds, the rashes, the pimples, the itchies that come out in different orifices. That ivermectin paste up your nose, in your ears, if they're itchy, can help get them out faster. Okay. Then for me, it's all about getting heavy metals. People don't realize that heavy metals and the noxious fumes that we absorb, all that toxicity is a food source for parasites. So there's a double protocol of nano silver to kill all living things, including eggs, larvae, biofilm, and adults. But also the zeolite product called Cell Defender, which cleans up that heavy metals. Now, how does zeolite do that? Zeolite is where lava, volcanic lava, meets seawater and it crystallizes. It's harvested, and it's so good at absorption of heavy metals that when you harvest zeolite, it has all of the fumes from the diesel gas from the bulldozer in it. So the key to zeolite is how well it was cleaned. So there's lots of zeolites on the market, but I stand on this particular zeolite because of the fastidiness of the cleaning process of the zeolite. So this zeolite turns into little tiny cages, and the cages have a negative charge that go in and attack any metal with a positive charge and cage it up so it can't be released, and then you pee it out. So that's why it's important to take zeolite multiple times a day, because every time you go to the bathroom, you're releasing the zeolite cage-like structures. So you've got to start with the cleanest zeolite available in order for it to have a maximum efficiency in cleaning up the metals in your body. So you clean up the food source while you're killing off the parasites, and you have your cells signaling and the repair and restoration of the cells going on simultaneously. Now that is a recipe for success. Does it mean that you're going to get them all? Not necessarily. Love to tell you it works for everybody every time. Not necessarily. Sometimes we have to go back to ivermectin, go back to fenbendazole, put them on a 3 days on, 2 days off, 5 days on, 2 days off to get the worst of it out. But we don't know that until we see how the body responds to, my goal is to get the fastest, so that you don't have to stay on it forever, right? Because I recognize the cost factor, but I also rather pay to get well than to stay sick. Because either way, you're going to pay. So I go after the bulk, the fastest, and then based on symptoms, we see what we have left. So there's not a one size fits all protocol, Natalia. It would be easier for me if there were. And for everybody.
Of course, that's what you personally use yourself for sure. So what was because you described, okay, there was these are all working on a cellular level, right?
All of them. And thank you for that. I can't hurt anybody with these. Yes, you will have detoxing symptoms. Yes, you will have Herxing system symptoms. Some of them won't be comfortable, but I can't hurt you with these, and they don't interfere with existing medications. So people that are fearful of letting go of their meds, they don't have to be. We can do this regardless of what you feel like you need to stay on.
Yeah, because I'm aware, like with redox signaling molecule, it's what is native to you. It's what your body makes completely. So that's safe on that end. Now, in terms of the zeolite, you mentioned, because some people would be concerned about cleanliness. So the product that you use it has this cleaning that you were talking about, this cleaning aspect to it. So there should be no worry around that.
Correct. The biochemist behind this zeolite product has been working with the zeolites for 25 years. And he left 2 previous companies because they kept cutting corners as far as the cleaning process goes. He started his own company to make sure that it was done correctly. So I followed him.
Beautiful. And then what about, because you mentioned like nano silver, what about people that are concerned about, things that are, concerns about nanotechnology in general? Like, what would you say about the safety of nano silver, specifically the one that you use? Because I'm assuming there's a lot of nano silver on the market.
Well, there's a lot of silvers on the market, and where people get confused is, colloidal silver has long been used in the medical industry, but it shouldn't be ingested because it's great for external wounds, cuts, scrapes, things like that, but it's too big of a particle to be ingesting, because eventually what happens with colloidal silver is you build up a heavy metal of silver in your body. So you don't want to do that. Nano is simply the size of, you don't want it so small that it goes into the cell itself, because silver doesn't belong inside the cell, but you do want it in the bloodstream. So nanotechnologies is kind of unfairly compared to nano silver, which is just merely the size. It's kind of like the perfect, not too small, not too large, the Goldilocks story, right? Just the bed just right. It's that just right size of silver that gets in and does the job without damaging cells, but it keeps the damage away from the cells by getting rid of the parasites.
Beautiful. And I mean, if the audience listening, if you have any specific question, you can also leave your questions in the comments and we'll see how to respond to these as well. So feel free to do that. So I think I'm curious. So, because now what you're mentioning from the three of them is that why they're kind of a breakthrough in the way that we're dealing with detoxifying or taking care of the body is because they have the capacity to enter the bloodstream, right? Is that what you're saying? So in that way, they're able to, because we're talking like parasites are hiding in different areas of the body. So the combination of these three will allow the detoxifying on those layers, correct?
Right, not just on the external layers of the organs, but on the internal layers of the organs. Because remember that, with ASEA, every organ, every system is built on a foundation of cells. They don't exist if the cells aren't functioning properly. Really little else matters because life doesn't exist if the cells aren't functioning properly.
Yeah.
So that one, yes, you definitely want ASEA to be going into the cells. That's where it's intended to be. That's what the body knows what to do with it. As it goes into where it belongs, into the cell itself, the cascading effect starts where that energy molecules pop out to the next closest cell, repair and replace, start that one doing the same thing. And it's this whole beautiful cascading effect. The major science health breakthrough was the ability to stabilize these energy molecules outside of the human body and give them a shelf life. That, they said, could never be done. And 14 years ago, it was done. And the founder of this company will tell you it was a divine hand that allowed them to crack the code to be able to do this. Out of the same humble ingredients that the Lord used for the mitochondria and the cells, which is salt and water. Taste your tears if you don't think your body is full of salt. And salt and water are the only two ingredients in ASEA that, after going through this operational process, they turn into this energetic molecule. So 7 patents, 1,000 trade secrets, none of them are on the flavor. So don't expect it to taste awesome. It tastes more like salt water to some, or chlorine water to others, or but I will tell you this: the sicker you are, the worse it's going to taste for 10 days to 2 weeks. That means your body needs it really badly.
Yeah. And what would you say, so far from what you were describing, it feels like each one is important separately, but when they come together, it's like a superpower. But just to understand, just to see if I'm understanding correctly, so the redox signaling molecule is just more providing, it's not tackling, going after the pathogens per se, but it's creating the foundation to support the body through boosting the immune system or decreasing the inflammation, things like that. For the other things, like you were saying, the nanosilver and zeolite come and be like the weapons, to destroy. Is that it?
Yeah, that's a great way to describe it. The one thing I will say is that there are some metals that don't belong in our body that are detoxed using ASEA, the redox signaling molecules. There are some, not all, but there are some. But getting the inflammation down is key. And that's what ASEA is so good at, because dumping a toxic layer of dead parasites onto an inflamed body already is a recipe for quitting. People don't like to be in pain. They have jobs to go to, kids to take care of, things to do. They don't like to be in pain. So there is I've had one person say, just hit me with your best shot. I don't have time to waste on this. Just hit me with your best shot. And she ended up calling me saying, okay, you're right. Let's back off. Let's back off. This is hard work, Natalia. It's hard work. It's not for the faint of heart. But I'm telling you, when I watched my daughter go from 26 meds a day to 0 and become a functioning human being again, it's worth it. And it's all there for people to have the knowledge and the access to get it done for themselves and the people they love.
Beautiful, beautiful. And that's what we were saying, right? Because it's a separate entity with its own consciousness. And so it's going to fight. And what they're feeling is also that what's giving up, sometimes I say is like kind of that entity that's within you. The parasites themselves are the ones struggling, not you. So
That's
sometimes
right.
having that awareness helps. So now what would you say, what's the link between heavy metals and parasites for you? Because a lot of people say, okay, like, I already take zeolite, but it's because of aluminium or, mercury or whatever it is to get rid of those heavy metals. But it seems like some people take it even for a parasite cleanse. So what's the link between them?
It's a food source for parasites. Heavy metals are a food source. And so what you're doing is, if you think of it as a fish tank, your internal hygiene is just one big fish tank. And the fish tank is, instead of going after just the little snakes in the water, if you will, the parasites in the water, you're cleaning the tank. You're cleaning the water itself. So that's what you're doing when you're getting rid of the heavy metals and noxious fumes and toxic waste. That dirty water feeds those parasites. So the zeolite is cleaning the water, so to speak, and the silver is killing the parasites that are eating at the cells.
Wow, that's perfect. That's a beautiful analogy. I know that you shared a little bit about your story and your daughter's story, but is there anything more that you wanted to add on maybe the results that you found, whether it was you could notice maybe just specifically when you started with redox and then you added the others, or maybe, the blend of the three of them?
Sure. She started losing the craving. This is back to the parasites had taken over, right? And the parasites were the reason she was craving vodka every day and craving the cigarettes every day and having all of these, not being able to kick the opioids and all of that, because all of those things were feeding those parasites. There's lots of sugar in the way she was drinking her vodka. Vodka and dark red wines are the two with the alcohols that with the least amount of sugar in it. Just so your audience knows that I get it. If you don't want to cut absolutely everything out and you're 60 years old, you go, I'm not going to do all that. I get it. But, pick wisely, right? Pick wisely your ammunition. So once she started on ASEA, she was able to cut down on the smoking. She was able to kick the last 3 opioids that she wasn't able to kick before. Neither one of us really understood why until now, which is that whole process of the cell signaling molecules that keep us in good health was so reduced in her that she had no capacity to really fight off anything at that point. It was raising her immune systems, the levels. It was giving her more energy. She was doing some detoxing. And then she started moving more. Now, just think about that. When somebody is couch bound for 7 to 25 years, just getting up and walking around the house a couple of times a day will create weight loss, will create, fresh air in the lungs, will start another, form of good health practices that support what you're doing. So with the redox and getting the inflammation down, then she didn't hurt so much. So she was able to start moving more. And that started the process of then making wiser decisions with food and with alcohol. And she started cutting that down. And then it's when I heard about, from the Lord about these parasites and heavy metals that we started down that path, that we also started taking every single drug systematically, not all at once. And every time we went through the exercise of showing her exactly what was in those medications, she on her own went off of all of them. But in our heads, we determine we've been on this thing for so long we can never get off of it. I beg to differ. And keep in mind, too, the other thing that the redox signaling molecules do is they increase the efficiency of the cells so much that the good things that you are taking into your body, the efficacy of that goes way up because your cells now can absorb those good things. Mm-hmm. So keep that in mind too when you're thinking about the cell signaling.
Beautiful. Yeah, and that's leading me to something that also, because you have a very beautiful channel actually that's on Telegram channel. I'm gonna link it in the description box. And it's called Parasites Meet Cells, right? But you mentioned in it that we're not, there was a post about we're not sick, but we're being poisoned. And I think that's what it's all coming down to. So what would you say for people, like how can they reclaim their body sovereignty from everything we're talking about in this reality where, they're being poisoned?
Really good question. It feels like the $6 million question, and I'm not sure I have a perfect answer for you, but
your perspective.
I will say that very respectfully to every listener of this podcast that it starts with you. It starts with you. You must believe that health is your responsibility and stop handing your health over to the medical arena that only makes money off of your sick body. That's what they do. That's what they've been trained to do. They're not all bad people. They just don't know any different. Yeah. So when you take responsibility, number one, then number two, there are people like Natalia and myself out here standing in wait to support you on that journey as you walk through.
Amen. Yeah. So I think I was just wrapping it up here, but is there anything you would recommend for them to be a bit more aware of in terms of parasites?
Well, I would, I think without meaning to be self-serving here, that the Telegram channel is a great place to get started, to be exposed to all kinds of different parasites at no charge. That's number one. And there are pinned messages. And for those of you not familiar with Telegram, it's kind of a Facebook alternative, but it's more for serious categories instead of just family photos, if you will. So go to telegram.com and then search for @Parasites Meet Cells. There are pinned messages that there's a 10-minute movie that shows you how parasites get into your body. And that is, again, the air we breathe, the water we drink, the food we eat. One of my biggest sources of parasites, the worms in my lungs, I was an avid sushi eater. I'll never eat sushi again. There are 10,000 parasitical eggs per square inch in a piece of sushi. 10,000. Do all of them live? No, but enough of them live to make more. So, undercooked meat of any kind, pork, terrible source of tapeworm. If you think about how pigs eat with their nose in the mud most of the time, they're just full of worms. So that's a great channel to watch that 10-minute movie and then scroll through, and you'll probably kind of get freaked out. Take it in bite-sized chunks.
Yes, and I'm definitely going to tag this, all the links down in the description box. And of course, as I'm mentioning, like you have any questions, you can reach out to both of us as well, and we'll be happy to support you. I just want to finalize here by celebrating you because I heard the news that you're launching a book or is just about to finish. So you want to share a little bit more about that?
Sure. It's really been heavy on my heart to get out as much information as possible. And starting with the fact that we can claim our sovereignty back over our own body. And this book is called Let It. Let It! Exclamation point. Your body can heal itself given the right environment. A guide to inner healing. So we hope to have that out by the fall. We're in the editing process now, and I feel really certain that it's going to be book one. It's not a focus on parasites, it's a focus on healing from within, but there will be a parasite book as well that goes into much more detail. But in the meantime, I'm coming out with a short version ebook of just on parasites to also help people that are just interested in that topic alone. Just get the basics. That ebook will be just the basics.
Oh my God. Diane, wow, I swear you're doing a great service to humanity just by going down that rabbit hole. Because I know it takes also a lot of courage. And I feel that courage in you to be that voice, and to just bring that away, do the hard work because I'm sure that this information is not that easily available. Like you had to definitely do your deep research and find it and excavate it in that sense. So I really appreciate that. And it's just, it's been such a beautiful conversation. Thank you for all that you shared.
Thank you, Natalia. And I am just honored and blessed to have you in my life and as a fast growing friend. And I just honor you and all that you're doing with your stepson as well. It will be double blessing for him and for you and your husband as well. So yeah, really look forward to us knowing each other for a long time.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, thank you so much. And thank you for everybody that was watching. I hope that this was some sort of beacon of light of realizing, bringing that awareness that that whatever discomfort or illness, there is a root cause beneath it. And you have the tools in your hand to go and grab it and see what you can actually do to support your body so that you can live in more peace and more harmony and more alignment, more health and everything that you dream of because you're worthy. And I hope that these stories that you heard today, that there is solutions, even when we feel like we're reaching a dead end, know that there is a solution and it's right here. So please reach out if there's anything you want to know. Everything is in the description box below. And if you like this video or this conversation, also share it with other people that may benefit from it so that they can know also that there's solutions available to them. Okay, much love. Thank you, everybody.